my new YouTube channel, Trending BTC is what I'm going to call it. And really the purpose is to introduce Bitcoin to folks that are curious, have heard about it in the news, and just want to understand what the heck is going on. I am Real Bitcoinaire on Twitter. I've been in Bitcoin since 2017, and so I've seen both the hype cycle as well as the crypto depression cycle multiple times at this point. And really the purpose of this channel is to help determine kind of signal from the noise. When you're in crypto, you really, it's hard to understand kind of what's true, what's not. And I believe that Bitcoin is the ultimate truth. And so, this presentation, I'm going to do these once, probably a week. No frills. You're not going to see any beautiful designer graphics. So if that's what you're looking for, or you're looking for altcoin pumps, this is not the right channel for you. Again, purpose of this is to understand kind of signal from the noise, education, and just trying to help people that are new to this space get acclimated. The next couple of years are going to be pretty exciting. But, I'm here to try to help you guide through this journey because I feel like it could have been really beneficial for me to try to understand the truth early on, but there really wasn't enough resources. And so that's the goal. Let's see if it works. First off, I'm going to start off with the Bitcoin price. So today, Monday, July 10th, 2023, we're sitting at $30,280, which is crazy to think because just a couple of years ago, it was around $3,000. So the price moves fast. It went up to close to 70,000, went down to 15,000, and now we're sitting here at 30, around 9 months out from the Bitcoin halving. That's where I want to start. So this is a great tweet by Virtual Bacon. Each Bitcoin cycle can be broken down into 3 phases. So if you look here on this beautiful graphic, the first cycle, well, the first part of the cycle post-halving is the run-up. So typically around 500 days, bullish, maybe even a little less in the first halving, but we're going to really go over the last 2 cycles. You see here, the first run-up is that mania phase. So we would actually be in this part of the cycle, so pre-halving. And so you're seeing a bunch of bullish narrative on Twitter. Everyone's posting about how we're going to hit all-time high this year. Anything's possible in Bitcoin, but ultimately, based on the last 2 cycles, I think we're going to chop around, 20, 30, 40, 50K maybe. But somewhere in that 20 to 50K range is where I'd imagine we are up until the halving. And then even after that, you see at both previous cycles, we're gonna leave this one alone because ultimately it was the first cycle. But if you see in these 2 where we are post-halving, there's a lot of chop. So this is an uptrend, but it is choppy. And so I want to kind of set expectations here that this period of time over the next, call it 12 to 18 months, should be really spent focused on stacking sats and learning as much as possible about Bitcoin, the halving, what drives it, supply and demand, etc. This is not financial advice. None of this channel is, meant to be financial advice. It's really meant to be education and helping people that are new to the space. So what I want to highlight here is the halving cycle. Bitcoin halvings are where the supply is cut in half. The new issuance is cut in half. So every 4 years that occurs. And what that does is drive more, price appreciation, number go up technology, as they all say. The reason being, if there's the same amount of demand over time, but the supply keeps on getting cut in half, the price is just designed to go up. And I'm assuming that demand is going to increase, and I'll show you why in a second. And so if you think about it, there's 21 million Bitcoin ever created, with around 3 to 4 million of those being lost, plus Satoshi. So I would estimate 17, 18 million Bitcoin ever to be in circulation. There's over 50 million millionaires in the world. And so if just every millionaire wanted 1 Bitcoin, there wouldn't be enough to go around. That's going to cause a major shock at some point, in my opinion. And so where we are in the halving, it's really important to understand, to not get too bullish or bearish, is we're in the chop zone, we'll call it. So it's going to be a lot of sideways, probably for another 12 to 18 months. The fireworks go off for, let's call it 300 to 500 days. And then it's the depression that we experienced with FTX, Celsius, BlockFi. We experienced it back in 2018, and I'm sure we'll experience it again, 26, 27, before the whole thing starts over again. So just to understand kind of the Bitcoin halving cycle, I think it's important, this time may be different, but until it is, I'm going to stick with this is where we are, so not to get overly bullish. Something to be pretty bullish about, actually, is this chart that you might have seen on Twitter. This is the first time in Bitcoin's history where the supply on exchanges, or the available supply, is trending down. So if you look over the course of the last few cycles, as the Bitcoin price rose, more Bitcoin was heading to exchanges so that people could sell it. And don't get me wrong, I expect people to sell Bitcoin, in the hype phase. I plan on taking some profits as well. Definitely think, once you start seeing monkey JPEGs mooning and vapor coins going up 1,000x in the course of a couple months, people are talking about how crypto is the future, etc. That's when you want to start trimming. On the same coin, once you start people really saying they're bankrupt and they lost everything and they're depressed and crypto is going to zero and it's worthless, that's when you want to start buying, in my opinion. Not financial advice, but really for this chart is super interesting because you're seeing for the first time that the amount of Bitcoin held on exchanges decreasing, which means that people are taking it into cold storage. Highly recommend, if you're going to be a Bitcoiner or crypto in general, it's just too risky to hold your Bitcoin on exchanges. They go out of business regularly. Obviously, Coinbase has been around for a while. I use Coinbase to buy my Bitcoin as well as Cash App, but you don't want to keep it there. It seems scary to buy a Ledger or a Trezor and go through the process of putting it on to your cold storage wallet. But I did it. I'm not a rocket science. It took me, an hour to figure it out. Did a couple test transactions. So I'm happy to help if you have any questions around that. Just reach out and I'd point you in the right direction with some YouTube videos. But really what I want to get across is that it's not rocket science, and you highly recommend, and I highly recommend you doing it. But this fact that supply is decreasing on exchanges for the first time before the halving happens tells me that there's just fewer and fewer Bitcoin available. And once that demand really starts to increase and the supply continues to decrease post-halving, I do expect some fireworks over here. So in the 24, 25 timeframe, we'll see. Next is the institutional meme. So everyone's heard institutions are coming for the past 10, not 10 years, 5 years. Institutions are coming. It's going to bring all the money. We're all going to get rich. We're all going to make it, all that stuff. This is the first time in my, experience that I think they actually are coming. You could see the news cycle changing, Bitcoin ETFs being filed, bonds are out of their 40-year bull run, and so that money's got to go somewhere. And this is the first time where big institutional money could potentially be coming to Bitcoin. The way I think about it is 2017 was the hype cycle to get retail in and kind of hit the conscious of, the retail investor. 2021 was when Bitcoin really hit the conscious of the institutional investor, and 2025 is when Bitcoin is going to hit the consciousness of the government investor, or central banks are going to stack Bitcoin, basically. So this is gearing up for a pretty wild time, I would say, in Bitcoin over the next 2 years, with the BlackRock ETF destined to be approved. BlackRock might as well be an extension of the US government. They have really close ties to the government, so they wouldn't file an ETF if they're not going to get approved, most likely. And then you see all the others that have followed them. I don't think all of them are going to get approved for ETFs, but it's the money is coming. You can feel it. And what's really interesting with that is you're starting to see the narrative change. So Standard Chartered Bank, $800 billion bank, is now forecasting a price of $120,000 per Bitcoin in 2024. They've been a supporter for a couple of years now, I would say, but these price predictions coming out of left field, as well as Bitcoin mining being green. A couple of years ago, Bitcoin was boiling the oceans, right? Like, it was horrible for the environment. And all of a sudden, you're starting to see Forbes come out with the fact that Bitcoin mining is becoming more green. Well, that's just propaganda. That's PR paid for by the institutions, BlackRock, et cetera, to, pump their bags and get it more in the public consciousness of Bitcoin is okay. They're giving you the green light to invest, basically. Super interesting times to see it shift from Larry Fink calling it, a mechanism for, illegal drugs and trafficking to now Bitcoin is green. I'm launching an ETF, et cetera. Just really interesting to see the whole progression. But it's here, and this is pre-halving. This is when you want to start thinking about it, learning about it, stacking, not financial advice. Next is we're just getting started. So if you think about it, the first target is going to be gold's market cap. Gold is $10 to $12 trillion of worth value. Bitcoin 600 billion. So if one Bitcoin was equal to the market cap of gold, or Bitcoin's market cap was equal to the market cap of gold, one Bitcoin would be worth $400,000 to $600,000 USD. That's the first stop on this journey. I believe that Bitcoin is going to eat into gold, real estate, and store value money, so savings. The first stop is gold, and I think we get to 50% of gold's value this halving cycle, full gold's value next halving cycle and beyond. But it just shows the runway that Bitcoin has ahead of it. There's a lot of value that Bitcoin is going to eat, as you can see the Pac-Man meme here, over the next 10 years. And so I would say now is better time than any, because it kind of, came out of the fire, so to speak, over the last couple of years. It's battle tested, and it's just getting started of really becoming a formal, traditional store of value asset. Finally, there's only 21 million Bitcoin. If you don't know that already, like I mentioned, a couple of million are lost. And so most of it has already been mined. I think around 70% of Bitcoin are being held in cold storage. And so that means only 30% are available to purchase, and only 7.5% are left to be mined. This is an extremely scarce asset. And if it catches on and people start buying it across the world, like they do stocks and bonds, the price will increase rapidly. And so, I posted this by Wicked Bitcoin because, this is just highlighting that we're close to the point where, and 30,000 is a lot of money, don't get me wrong, but I think in the near future, we're close to the point where like there's none left. And, if you want Bitcoin, you're going to have to pay a much higher price for it. And so it's important to start learning about it right now before this halving cycle. And again, who knows what the future holds? But if you think about it, like I said, 50 million millionaires, 21 million Bitcoin, 4 million lost. It's a supply and demand thing. There's not a lot of supply, and demand is only going to increase over time. That being said, not financial advice. We'll see what happens. This is a great first episode. I want to keep these short but sweet. Hopefully you learned something. Any questions or comments